On this episode of Industry Relations, Rob and I do an Inman Connect recap and talk about possible settlement scenarios for the industry lawsuits. Join us. This is Industry Relations, a podcast that's at the intersection of real estate and technology from an insider's perspective, with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Industry Relations with Rob and Greg. This is your co-host, the Notorious Rob, and as always, the fabulous Greg Robertson. Woo! And especially fabulous today because I'm proud to not announce because it's already been done, but I'm proud to say I work with the Nate Ellis Award winner. Yeah.
Hola, Rob. Yeah,
Hola.
Was a big honor for sure. I mean, I knew Nate.
Yep.
Nate was a great guy. You know, he actually got me into kind of the RE bar camp scene back in the day.
Yeah.
I had, wanted to go to these things, and Nate invited me to one. And as a vendor, I was, looking to weigh how could I kind of like exploit these to, my benefit. And Nate was the one that kind of gave me the ground rules that this is really kind of a pitch-free zone, and kind of walked me through that. And I've always appreciated that. So, I mean, it's just a great honor. I mean, the guy, Brad and everybody at Inman News was just completely great. And I can't thank them enough. And I have enough of an imposter syndrome to like not really think it's real. But and, I had a little fun on stage. I was, raising, there's a lot of pictures on on social of me. Like I won the lottery or something. I just was kind of hamming it up for the camera, but it was fun. And I really can't say thank you enough to everybody over at Inman. And then all the response to it has been fantastic. So that's good. But I thank
that's
you
well
also.
Deserved, man. I mean, in fact, there's the Nate Ellis Award. I find it's about contribution to the industry, and there are very few people who I think have contributed more, than you have. So, like I said, I'm honored to be working with the Nate Ellis Award winner. I think I have to start changing it up, like the fabulous Greg Nate Ellis Award winner Robertson, something,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I guess also positive news, but slightly less. I don't know. We were up. The Industry Relations, this podcast was up for.
Yeah, we were finalists.
We were a finalist, right? For what's the category, like best podcast or something?
Best podcast and video is they kind of combine that type of combined it. But yeah, we were up for that.
But we did not win. And
no, we didn't.
The winner was Glitter and Gay podcast. Is that right? Is that the name?
That's right. And because of that, Rob, I'm announcing a new format change.
Yes.
For us, and I'm just going to say I'm going to start wearing more glitter. So whatever you have to do to make the other thing happen, just let me know.
I've already said my sexual preference is super straight, so maybe it could be the glitter and super straight. I'm down with that.
Well, I guess we would have to go the opposite. It's monotone and super straight.
So you going forward, you can only wear like black. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's pretty on point anyway.
Yeah, and then what? Am I doing some like manosphere content all of a sudden?
Yes, exactly. You're gonna deliver king or whatever this shit, right? No, I mean that's Glenda from. She's a very popular realtor out of the Atlanta area, and Tyler, I forget his name, but he's on the Millionaire Real Estate Bravo land, and I've listened to the podcast a couple of times. It's they do good production value and everything else, and it's not even close to what the kind of content we're bringing. But
hell no.
But it's great to be a finalist in that kind of stuff. It was a complete surprise when we got nominated. So it made the kind of conference a little bit like fun as we're waiting around to see what was happening for that. So I did have a chance to talk to Glenda backstage, and she's a big Cloud CMA user, which I found out. So that was kind of fun to hear.
Sure.
So, but yeah, no, it's all good.
Yeah. Hey, congratulations to all the finalists and to the winner. I think for me, like we talked about, we've never expected it. So it's nice. It's kind of an honor to even be nominated.
Yeah, they had, I think, I think it was Ari Colorado won best MLS or association, and Gene
Yep.
Millman over there. I think that was really classy. He brought up some of the staff members there along with him
Yep.
for the award too.
Gene is a classy guy. Yep.
Yeah, and I can't remember some of the others, but yeah, good times for sure.
Good times. Okay, so I figured we'd make this a little bit of like an Inman review kind of thing. Of course, you attended a lot of the events. You moderated a bunch of things. Me, as normal, I just did LobbyCon because that's what I do. In fact, we need to really think about like planning that LobbyCon conference now that you are similarly unemployed as I am. But because give me your perspective on Inman this year, because I mean I've obviously just from a LobbyCon standpoint I have perspectives.
I mean I think a couple things. I think one topic that everybody talked about, and I think this was kind of, we all knew this is going to happen just because the market is, the attendance was low.
Yep.
And that's one thing. But I mean, a lot of stuff that is the function of the market, so they've got to deal with that with whatever they do.
Yeah.
Again, I can't compliment enough the high production value of the event itself. I mean, the stage, they brought in some good speakers. I went to the CEO Connect thing. It's just they do a really good job of putting on a conference, right?
Yeah.
But that the attendance thing I think just made everything a little bit light on that. We'll see what happens in New York, but I don't. I think any events out there are going to be a struggle to get agents with some discretionary income to show up.
That was my biggest takeaway from this, right? Because this is not Inman's fault, I don't think. But like this year, attendance was really, really thin. And I heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, I heard a stat that there were like 1,200 total attendees.
Yeah, there got to be more than that.
But that's just a stat. Again, it's totally just something I heard. It's 1,200 attendees and 600 were vendors. That ain't gonna work.
Yeah, I don't. It seemed like a lot more than 1,200, but I don't know. I haven't heard anything officially.
But what it says to me is, like the overall economy. There's been some Twitter threads, etc. It's like where's the recession? Like there's no recession. Maybe we're gonna. I'm like, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling like there's a recession in real estate right now because the market is so bad and it's so hammered.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, the low inventory, that was a big topic for everybody.
Yep.
There's a lot of panels about, that were directed towards agents that now's the time to kind of double down. I was talking to a former title rep who ran a big title operation here in Southern California. He says, like, if you can make it through this to the other side, and that's a big if, you're going to do 3 times more revenue than you ever did, right? So it's about a hunkering down situation for sure.
Sure.
And the agents there that are still kind of sharpening their saw, so to speak. I mean, maybe maybe that's what it takes. It takes to kind of invest in those downtimes as well, and when other agents are kind of like throwing in the towel to kind of take that business. So
and it's likely going to happen. That was my big sort of meta impression. It's like, oh, you know what? I think real estate industry is actually in a recession right now, right? Just judging by like things like, I remember when Inman's, you go to Inman and every night there's some official sanction like party after it's lined up and you're trying to pick like, I got to somehow figure out how to get to these 3 parties, by whatever, CoreLogic and Zillow and Trulia, like, and this year, I don't even know if there was there like that many, because there's always like people getting together, right?
I mean, I went to the Reach party the night before last, and that was really fun. And like, again, I won't say any names, but I went to quite a few of them, but I'm not sure if they were sanctioned or not. So I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Again, like to me, those like, you end up going out to dinner, you go into having drinks with people, it's like informal gatherings at whatever, but that's always the case in any conference, not just Inman, like literally every conference. I mean, I hosted a gem luncheon that Greg put on. But yeah, it just felt like maybe there's like a new index. We'll call it like the party index for measuring the strength of the economy or something.
Well, that's probably true everywhere, right? I mean,
probably.
For real estate anyway, right? I'm sure there's the less of the champagne flowing at the brokerages on on
Yeah.
things or something else, right?
Yeah. So yeah, like that's how I'm feeling about it. Like right now, I think based on Inman, maybe we'll call it the Inman Index. Like I think the real estate industry, residential real estate industry, is at this point in a recession. And
They've got
you know,
some other things out there. So we could also look to NAR's coming up in Anaheim. There's got the
yep.
IOI event in Miami. You've got
Hmm.
Blueprint, which I hear a lot about. I haven't been to that at all.
It's awesome. Blueprint's really good.
Yeah, so there's a few things going on there.
Yep. All right. So that's the overall kind of vibe and economy. What about content? Because like I said, I didn't go to any of those. So
I like the. I mean, so I moderated about. I think it was on one panel and then moderated three others.
hmm
And I really like their. I mean, Inman News did I think a write up of all that. So at CO Connect, I was on a panel regarding whether or not how big of a deal the lawsuits are, what the aftermath is, and I got
yeah,
a lot of shit because they wanted to
yeah,
rate on a scale of 1 to 10, and I said 3, and James
yeah,
Wiggins and
yeah.
I forget the other guy's name.
Is that your true opinion, or were you just kind of taking that stance for the purpose of entertainment?
Right. I think that's a great question. So I think as a moderator, when you're on a panel, especially I think as a moderator, I mean, there is a little bit of a theater there, and nothing's more boring than everybody agreeing with themselves, right? So
Right.
I took a little bit more of a contrarian thing. I mean, maybe I'm not a 3, but it's a little bit. I think we've talked about this before. I believe that at some level we've got to settle this. Somebody's going to settle this because there's just too much at stake, and I do believe that now. Whether that happens this year or in the second appeals process, I think if you're going to go for it, you go big that first offer and try to get all this thing wrapped up.
Sure.
Now, James especially had a lot to say about that.
He did.
But and
I know
all
Russ
great
Cafano is
points.
a lawyer. I mean, what what did he say?
Oh yeah, it was Russ was the third one. That's right. Russ is super smart.
Yeah.
I always enjoy reading him, and he had a podcast. I'm not even sure if he's done that anymore because it's been a while. I think Everything All at Once was that something like that. Anyway, no, he was like 11 of a 10. He was like an 11.
Oh, he was
or
even
12.
more than James.
No, I think they're about the same. They were a 10 and an 11 there. And he had some more, I think, procedural things about like, well, how would this work, which makes him a little bit more doubtful on things. But
Maybe we should get Russ on this podcast.
that would be great. Yeah.
Because I obviously have, I think I'm a 12, right? I think I've long been. In fact, a friend of mine came up during Inman and was like saying something about how some teleconference or something, someone mentioned something like, we can't all be doomsayers like Rob, this commission lawsuit. I'm like, I don't think I'm a doomsayer. I'm just pointing out what I think, is happening. So it'd be cool to see if maybe Russ ends up between us, right? Like
Right.
if you're the positive, nothing will change and everything will be fine. We'll settle this and it'll go away. And I'm the meteor's about to impact, like everything's going to get wiped out. Maybe Russ will end up being kind of in the middle. It's like, it'll be bad, but it's not going to be extinction, right. Rob, so.
Yeah. And, it depends on what do you mean by what's the aftermath? How bad will it be? Like, and we had, I came a little early and we had our own kind of like meetings on stuff.
Sure.
And we talked about, the fact of like, even if you have these high dollar kind of things they throw around, like this is going to be $200 billion is the net damages or something. Well, I mean, I could sue you for 200 billion.
Sure.
Who fucking cares? You don't have it.
Right.
Right. So at some point, and the attorneys, they're not knights on a white knights on shining armor trying to protect the consumer.
Nope.
That's not who these guys are. These guys are here to fucking make money, and they're here to make money for as little effort as possible. So, okay, if I'm going to threaten you with $200 billion and you're going to laugh at them and go, well, go ahead. I don't have it. okay, so it's going to be a back and forth of like, okay, what is the most I can get from you and the least amount of effort and time? And I think that's what's going to be the prevailing factor here that happens is that, we're all going to kind of have to come up with that.
So should I mention the topic and then we talk about it in a future episode, or do you want to get into it in this episode?
Yeah, we can get into it this episode. Sure.
All right. So here's the thing. I mean, I've had those conversations as well, and the thing I keep pointing out is, it would be wise, I think, for real estate people, leadership, to take a look at what happens in bankruptcy. Right? Because I wrote about it briefly. I touched on it in one of my Substack posts. Right? Like, the thing that people are sort of forgetting is, okay, fine. Let's say you're, some large MLS. You're not a defendant today. So take Sitzer. Let's just use Sitzer because that's the first case that's coming up, right? Okay. For example, Heartland MLS is not a defendant, right? But they are a co-conspirator. They were named, kind of not named by name, but, they talked about MLS and local associate control MLS as a co-conspirator. Okay. So let's say that case comes down to $10 billion. I completely agree. Nobody's paying $10 billion. Like, no one can afford $10 billion. I completely agree. Right. And that's okay. We're going to plead in Heartland. Right. They say, well, we don't have $10 billion. So to your point, it's like, I don't have it. So you could claim all you want, but I don't have it. Right. The next step after that to me is where the opinions diverge. You're right in that the lawyers aren't doing this for the goodness of their heart. They're not reformers. I don't buy that for a second. This is not the NAACP bringing a lawsuit is my point, right? So what are they? You think they're going to settle, right? My thing is, what if you don't settle? What happens?
Well, I mean, if you don't settle, I mean, then it's a bankruptcy situation.
Right.
Okay,
right.
What are the assets of
That's right.
of the MLS? And
That's
I mean,
right.
there's really, to me, maybe some hard assets like a building. But I mean, again, that gets all into like who wants to like, if I'm an attorney, I'd bring it down where I can get as much cash out of you without having to go through. As I said, what is the most amount of money I can get with the least amount of freaking issues?
No,
right?
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree. But let's just take Heartland. You know what? MLS PIN, because MLS PIN had a settlement. So it gives us an idea of the financials, right? So let's say Heartland comes and says, listen, we don't have the money. We can give you $3 million. Right? We give $3 million. That's what they settle for. The question is, what is Heartland MLS worth as an entity, as an enterprise? Right, that's throwing off a certain amount of revenue every year, and I don't know what that number is, but let's say it's whatever.
It might be a nonprofit, right? So it might be not throwing off anything.
No, but they still have revenues. My point, right? Like, you're a nonprofit, so you don't generate profit, but there are subscription fees, right?
That
like
go to pay for the
makes
cost
revenue.
of running it. Yeah,
right. Plus the cost of running it. But what's the enterprise worth? If let's say I were to go to the owners of Heartland MLS, which are realtor associates, not for profit, say I want to buy Heartland from you, what will they ask for? Right.
Right.
Let's say they would say we want $50 million for it. Right. I'm just pulling numbers out of my ass, right? Because I don't know the numbers.
Well, I mean, but again, you have to think about, and again, this goes back to the work thing. They might have bylaws that say that they cannot be purchased, right? That there's some sort of
sure.
So all that have to be unraveled as well, right?
Sure. All I'm saying is, what is the enterprise value of Heartland MLS as an ongoing company, right? Let's say it's $50 million, right? I'm the lawyer. You come back to me with, look, man, we can pay you $3 million. Like, yeah, but you're worth 50, right? And the minute you go into bankruptcy, I, as your largest creditor, own all your assets. And you're right. The assets are minimal. They're all, like the hard assets are very few, right? But what you do have that are assets? You have the data, right? You have all those contracts with all the brokers and agents, and you are a local monopoly. So I say, fuck it. I'll just take your assets. And then your nonprofit, for-profit doesn't matter because I'm not buying the company. I'm buying all the assets. So I own all your equipment. I own all your contracts. I own all of it. Right now, I'm a lawyer. I don't want to run a fucking MLS. Like, can we agree? Right? That's not the point here. Could I find somebody who's willing to buy that from me for $20 million? I bet I could. I bet I could. Private equity fund, maybe a very large company that runs a commercial MLS. Maybe I bet I could. And that's the piece I think a lot of folks are missing on this, right? Because now that's MLS, right? Not ticket brokers, right? Like I've named as co-conspirators a whole bunch of brokers in Missouri, right? Okay, I say, hey, you owe me $10 billion. Can't pay it. I'm bankrupt. Cool. You don't just get to say I'm bankrupt. Then I take all your assets. What are your assets? You don't have any, right? But you do have? You have a whole bunch of data. You have a whole bunch of listings. You have a whole bunch of independent contract agreements. It's probably not worth a whole lot, but could I take over and then sell you to somebody else for 10 cents on the dollar? That would be more than what you would offer me in a settlement. That's the whole key thing. It's like if what you're able to offer me in a settlement conversation is more than what I think I could get by bankrupting you, taking all your assets and selling it to somebody else, then sure, I'll settle. Because like I said, these lawyers are not, they're not, good Samaritans, right? They're not doing this for changing the rules of, like, they don't give a fuck. They want to get paid. So that's the whole thing. And I don't think people are taking that seriously into account.
Yeah, I think, a couple things there. So, first of all, there really is no, and I know you've been talking about this for a long time as far as MLSs should figure out what they're worth, right? There's no current market for, real estate associations and MLSs, right? So that market has to be kind of, created. These things a lot of times are typically set up only as nonprofits, right?
Agreed.
And then, so there would have to be a really seismic shift in, the way that we do real estate, right? Because those would be not about NAR at all, because they're private entities now. They would have, it's just, again, that sounds like, as I said before, too much fucking work in order to in order to extract that, right? So I would just go back to what I said before is like, okay, I don't want to fucking create a market for MLSs and associations, come up with a valuation. That's going to take a long time. Then I have to change the structure of these entities to be not nonprofit so I can extract something.
No,
I have to tell, because I have to show the people that are buying it that they're going to be able to extract revenue from it. And then you have the risk of, well, what if the dogs don't eat it? Meaning, what if the realtors, okay, this is now owned by CoStar or whoever,
private equity fund,
some private equity fund,
Stonebridge private equity fund.
They don't want to, contribute to that. The brokers don't want to do that, right? That might,
what are the choices?
There's a lot of ifs. Well, there could be other choices. I mean, there's some people I know of that are, are making other MLS systems out there, right?
But they don't exist today, right?
Correct.
So here's what I'm saying. Like, I don't disagree with you in any way, shape, or form, right? I'm saying the thing that people don't talk about enough, and this is the problem. I have no idea what the actual number of subscribers at Heartland MLS is. Do you know offhand? KCRAR?
Oh, probably 20.
We could probably take it up. Let's say it's 10,000, right?
Right.
Again, it's probably more, but let's just say it's 10,000 people. I'm looking at their fee schedule right now, right? Heartland MLS charges $75 a quarter. So $25 a month, right? Per subscriber.
Cheap. Yeah.
It's cheap. It's dirt cheap. But it's $25 a month times 10,000, $250,000 a month, right? Plus there's some, office fees and shit like that. I'm saying you have revenue. So you just a discounted cash flow. It's not that hard. I mean, it'll take some junior analyst an afternoon.
But again, if I'm buying it,
no, you're thinking that you're going to buy the entity. You're not buying the entity. That's my point. I'm saying that Heartland MLS throws off, let's say, whatever, $3, $4, $5 million a year.
It doesn't. Right? Well, when you say throw off, I mean, you're not talking about net profit.
No, revenue, just straight revenue.
Okay,
right?
Well, so it's not throwing that; it's using that funds to actually keep the enterprise going.
No, I understand. My point is, you can value an enterprise based on discounted cash flow, just straight revenue.
Okay,
it's not a great model, right? I'm saying if I'm a third party private equity fund, I could just look at your revenue. And say, okay, I think you're probably worth this, right? And by the way, you've been throwing off this amount of revenue, cash, for the last 70 years because you're a local monopoly. Once I take it over, to your point, it's like some local brokers and agents might be like, we don't want to do it here. But hey, man, in the meantime, where are you going to put your house? Like you have to sell a house for your seller. Where are you putting it? Right? If you're not putting into Heartland, where are you putting it? Like that becomes a thing. So it's not that hard, I think, for some private equity fund or some analyst to be like, hey, this Heartland MLS thing is worth 10 million, right? So we'll buy it for 20 cents on the dollar. We'll give you $2 million for the assets there, right? Because as the lawyer, you just go in, okay, we'll just wipe you out, you're bankrupt, we're going to take all your assets and we're going to sell all the assets, including all the contracts and all of it to this private equity fund, right? And then the issue becomes, what are you offering in settlement? Because that's the whole thing, right? So if Harley said, okay, we'll offer 5 million, right? So, okay, 5 million versus what can I sell this for? What can I sell the pieces for? 5 million's more, we'll settle.
Well,
right?
What can I sell the pieces for?
At. We'll settle.
Well, what can I sell the piece for and how much hassle is it, right? Yeah.
Sure. The thing I will point out about that is people think this is like some sort of, because I've heard this. I mentioned this to a friend of mine. It's like, well, Rob, nobody thinks like you. You're just this. I'm like, yo, nobody thinks like me in real estate. Like in corporate law and finance, this is like, I'm a nobody. It's very, very basic. Like, yeah, of course. Like, yeah. And I'm saying Cohen Milstein and some of these law firms that are involved in these, and the one out of Massachusetts, I don't think is big enough. I'm really shocked by Izzard Kendall or whatever, right? I'm like, those guys know bankers, they know investment bankers, they know private equity. Like,
maybe they went through this
to be like, hey man,
but again, maybe you don't know, and I don't know. Maybe they went down this road and discovered there wasn't really any buyers out there.
Maybe that's entirely possible. I somehow doubt it. Right? Because if MLS
so now you're saying that these attorneys aren't even considering that option.
Considering what option?
The one you just went through.
No, I think they probably are. I would be shocked if Cohen Milstein, a company of that size and that sophistication, have not already had conversation, or they're not already fielding phone calls. But I mean,
they took the $3 million though.
Cohen Milstein didn't. Izzard Kendall did. Right? That's the law firm out of Massachusetts.
But, I'm saying that Izzard took the money.
They took the money.
And you don't think MLS that they considered selling it off?
I don't know if they did. I just don't know. I don't have the answer to it. Like, hey man, if you are listening,
so they could have. I think they
could have said, screw it. We're going to take this to the end, and at the end of it, we're going to get a judgment for, because there was a follow up to the settlement, which we got to talk about, by the way, at some point. Maybe not this one, where they revealed that they think there are 300,000 class members, right, who they think have paid too much, in commissions. All right, 300,000.
They're going to come up with as big a number as they can, right? Yeah.
Of course. But I mean, so if they're saying 300,000 potential plaintiffs in that class times, let's just say $5,000 each. I mean, that's, that's like no one can pay it kind of money already.
Right.
They could have taken over MLS Pen, is my point. And they chose not to.
Okay, let me go down and put your hat on and just say, let's say that. Again, I just don't think there's a market there.
Get a little closer. Your audio's a little fading.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe let's go down the road. I'll go down the road of this. So the way I would imagine it is, if I'm let's say private equity, right? So I'm just having gone through this game a bit. I would go and I would say, okay, yeah, this local monopoly, it's a nonprofit entity right now. Yep. Let's say that I know how to unravel that shit and do whatever else. Now it's a for-profit entity owned by me. And the dues are, what did we say the dues are? At that
$75 a quarter, so $25 a month.
Yeah. So then I just say I raise the dues to 100.
Yep.
And then I already know it's break even at the 75.
Yep.
And then boom, that goes back to that extra $25 that extra $100 a year goes right back to my LPs.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. I just think it's a lot of work to get to that point, right?
No, this is my point, right? It would normally be a lot of work, right? What shortcuts it is, this nonprofit just declared bankruptcy because they owe me $1 billion, right? So instead of me taking $1 billion from them, they're going to declare bankruptcy. I'm going to take all their assets.
No, I get what you're saying. I mean,
and then I just sell
there's
that,
still
all
a
the assets.
there's still a process. If you buy a company, I mean, just because they go bank, well, maybe not. I mean, if they go bankrupt,
You're not buying
does
the
that
company.
mean
This is the important part. You're not buying the company, right?
you're buying the assets?
You're not even buying it, because this, you know what? Since we're in real estate, the best way to think about it, this is no different than a foreclosure, right? Hey, you owe me money, right? And you can't pay me, so I'm going to foreclose on your house. I will take possession of your house, and then I'm going to sell that house at auction for 20 cents on the dollar, or whatever it is, because I don't care. I'm just trying to get money back. That's how this will work. Where the law firms would be like, oh, okay, you're bankrupt now. Cool. We take all your assets, right? And then we auction it off to private equity funds who are willing to operate essentially an MLS.
Right.
And then the whole nonprofit entity, realtor stuff, all that's out the window, because you don't exist anymore. It's just, we just took your assets and all your contracts. And the brokers and agents still have some place they can put in their information, right? And it's the same system they're used to.
Well, I mean,
nothing changes.
When you buy assets, though, then you have to rehire all the people. You have to,
Sure.
I mean, there's contracts. There's, it's still a boatload of work.
It's I'm not saying it's like tomorrow. My point is, if I'm a private equity fund, if I'm maybe it's another MLS, right? Maybe, I don't know, some MLS somewhere settled. MLS PIN already settled, right? Okay, imagine this. So MLS PIN now comes and says, hey, lawyers, when you bankrupt that MLS, we'll buy all the assets of that MLS.
Right.
And now MLS PIN, because they're around, right, becomes the largest MLS in the country through acquisition.
Right.
And it's like, we have staff, we know how to do this. And then the brokers and agents are, all right, cool, we don't care, because as long as we can do our business. And this is the stuff that people aren't doing. And this is just with MLSs. I'm saying apply this logic now to brokerages, right? Whatever, there are 10,000 brokers in Missouri. Every single one's about to go bankrupt. Cool, I'm the lawyer. I take all the brokerages, all their assets, all their book of business, and I flip it to some other brokers. Like, I'll buy that.
Right. Let's go down a road, though, where, and I kind of made a similar statement on one of the panels is, okay, so assuming you're everything, all that which you're kind of saying to me really bolsters my feeling that this is never going to
settlement.
There'll be a settlement, because
and so I'm agreeing.
Hold on, because you're talking about.
Let me clarify this so you can respond. Like, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying there can't be a settlement. What I'm saying is the assumption the settlement price will be super low is the wrong one. The settlement has to be high enough that as the law firm, I have to go, I'm better off taking the settlement than bankrupting you, taking your assets and selling it. Right. That's my point.
We've gone through this a little bit back in the day with civics, right? So the civics lawsuit was that there was a patent troll basically out there that had a patent that if you put a pin on a map for a property, right? So and what the industry did is it basically went around to all the vendors, associations, and MLSs and said, we have an opportunity to settle this thing, pony up.
Sure.
And I remember this well. W&R participated in this.
People wrote,
we wrote checks, and then it went away, and everybody was kind of covered underneath that. If That's I'm right. You're just talking about the vendor ecosystem for MLS Association, the association management systems, the portals that all rely on this kind of good, great MLS data, the Wall Street that takes some of this data, and then that's the small part. Now let's go into mortgage. That now you're threatening all the loans and the title and all that stuff out there. There could be a appetite or NAR, right? So maybe it doesn't have to be so low, but maybe there's a path where they can go to everybody and say, listen, NAR members, we've got this thing in front of us. We're going to, I own a income property in a condo complex, right? Well, fuck, the roofs, there was a lot of damage due to, hail or something. And sometimes I'll get not here, but just as an example, a special assessment, right? Well, this year we're going to tack on, $150 per quarter because we've got to fix these roofs.
Sure.
And then, they say it goes away at the end of the year, but somehow it doesn't go away sometimes. But in this case, maybe it's like, hey, every member's got to pay $400 extra this year.
Sure.
What's 400 times 1.5 million? Right. And then you do that over 3 years. They could find a way to find more money in this sense, enough to convince these lawyers like, hey, listen, I mean, we're not going to kind of poor mouth you here, but here's our plan, and this is how we would get to it. And I think,
sure,
maybe there's like that hybrid thing, kind of like if you can look at civics and any sort of like example of that happening again.
I don't disagree, and I've had those conversations with other people who are really smart and they get it. My only disagreement with them is there's a number being thrown around the industry, right? Because I think Ed Zorn came up with a number of about $2 billion for the settlement.
That's right? Fucking sounds like a lot of money to me.
It's not. It's bupkis, right?
How is it bupkis? Like, $2 billion
for the entire real estate industry? Yeah, that's bupkis. Yeah. NAR itself, just NAR, has assets of $1 billion under Form 990. That's just NAR. And
so then you talk about like more than twice of what NAR is worth.
I think the number is actually
fucking a lot. That's a big number.
I think the number is closer to $20 billion for the entire real estate industry.
You would have to show me how you get to that.
Let's do that on the show. I'll show you. My logic behind it. But But the simplest way to think about it is, granted, this year is like real estate recession, so we're probably going to be around 4 million homes sold, and whatever. Last year, there was $100 billion in commissions.
Yeah, you're talking about unicorn years, though, man. Those years will never come back again.
In an average year, we'll call it $60 billion in commissions. That reasonable?
Well, okay, but now you're bringing in the mortgage part. The loans.
No. This is just real estate commissions.
Oh, commissions. Okay, all right.
Just real estate commissions of $60 billion in an average, like 2018, 2019, 60 to 80 billion, right? Roughly.
That's the irony of this is that if they get money off of the commissions in the past to make them shrink in the future.
I know, right?
It's just its own fucking. Oh my God, Jesus.
So we could get through how I get to that, like that 20 billion. I'm just saying it's about 60 billion in total commissions. I understand that agents take most of it. I do. I'm just saying, but between brokers, realtor associations, and MLSs, I think if you were to talk nationally and you want to do a settlement across the board with everybody, I think the number is closer to 20.
So you go after the realtors?
What's that?
That money's gone. You're going to go after realtors because he said.
No, my point is dude. My point is simply like there's going to be 60 billion in commissions coming up next year, right? And then year after that, every year. Like, granted, with the rules change, maybe it's more like 30 billion, but still, I'm just saying there's evidence suggests that real estate industry throws off somewhere between 60 and 80 billion dollars in commissions every year.
And right? Who gets that money?
All sorts of different people, agents, brokers,
but
vendors,
mostly
MLSs,
agents, right? I mean, it's commissions, mostly agents.
I agree. No, I agree.
So that means that you're gonna every NAR member, you're gonna send them a bill for what's 60. What's what do you say? 20 billion?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I can. Even
I'm saying for a settlement amount is 20 billion.
Jesus.
I think, right. And if you bankrupted every brokerage, every franchise,
goes up to that.
Every MLS, every realtor association, and took all their assets and all their cash flow, I think you get there.
Yeah.
So I'm saying if we're going to do settlement, then a national global settlement, I think the number is closer to 20.
Somebody's got to show me the math.
I'd be happy to, but that changes the entire conversation. My point, right? Like, I think the reason why
that changes the conversation is like, okay, you're high, and just only numbers, but you're taking some sort of medical or non-prescription drugs. My response is 1.5 billion now if we're going to get fucking stupid.
But Greg, my point is if I could bankrupt all of you, take all your shit and then sell it for 20 billion, Why would I settle for
Nobody
less?
wants to fucking bankrupt 1.5 million agents.
If I'm the lawyer, why do I not want to bankrupt all the companies so I could sell you all for pieces and make 10 billion?
Again, but most if you're saying that, if you're using the agents' commissions to be the reason for your
I'm saying that's just like a rough sizing of the size of the residential real estate industry.
right, but you're using a metric of the cash has gone primarily to individual real estate agents.
Sure, fine.
So then,
So let's do an easy one. We know that the average brokerage split is 15%, right? Top line. Their profits are way below that, but the top line average revenue split is about
profits.
15, right? But like that seems reasonable. Would you say that's reasonable? 15%?
I don't know that. I don't know that industry as far as the economics of running a brokerage.
We'll call it 10%.
I've always heard that
right?
the reason they call themselves brokers is because they're broke. But go ahead.
I know, right? Putting broke in brokerage. My point is, like, let's say it's 10% on average. And so it's just brokerages, right? All whatever, however many thousands, they generate about 8 billion in cash flow.
Well, I would say probably a lot more brokers are used to declaring bankruptcy than most agents.
Sure.
But yeah.
Sure. So, push comes shove, I'm a large whatever. And you look at the valuation of some of the larger companies, like what's EXP's value, their market cap right now? Right. So if I went to EXP and said, listen, I'm going to bankrupt all your competitors and I'll sell all of those to you for 10 cents no dollar. Right. 20 cents no dollar. That's 1.6 billion. So I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying a settlement won't be done. All I'm suggesting is that the price for settlement, I think is going to be significantly higher. Because what everybody's forgetting is there's this other option. In other words, the way it's presented is this. The way it's presented is either you settle or you get nothing. Right. Hey, Mr. Lawyer, you big hotshot, fancy pants lawyer. You can either take my settlement off or you get nothing because we'll all declare bankruptcy. And I'm like, no, there's another option. It's like, cool, declare bankruptcy. We'll take all your shit and I'll sell it for pieces. I think we need to at least take that into consideration as we're talking about it. That's all I'm saying. Not that there won't be a settlement. I'm not saying that. Of course, there can be a settlement. We just saw one happen, right? But if you're one of these lawyers and you've got one of these once in a lifetime opportunities for intergenerational wealth, you're not going to just give it away. Right? You're going to find every conceivable way to maximize how much money you can get.
Right. So I guess what it comes down to then, in a sense, is and again, it's effort versus whatever else. But whatever spreadsheet you're going to believe, right? When NAR or whoever has to do a good job and say, let me tell you why $2 billion is a great deal for you.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And here's how we can do this, and this is we're done tomorrow. Versus what you would have to do to get more, and what the path is there. Yeah. Somebody has to do a good job of explaining. I know you want to 20 billion, and sure, you could possibly get that, but let me walk you through the steps of what that's going to take for you, rather than today, taking away, one of the biggest winnings of all time, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens there for sure.
We'll see what happens, right?
And then then again, I never thought NAR would get this whole DOJ thing. They won that. I mean, so we don't know. I mean,
we don't know.
And from all accounts that I hear is that NAR is still very comfortable with their case, right? So, we'll see what happens.
So, like I said, I didn't want to we need to have more episodes around this. I just wanted to point out this idea that we'll just settle it and it'll go away. I'm like, I don't think so, man. I don't think it's just will settle and go away. That cost of that settlement, I think, significantly higher than what most people in the industry are even willing to conceptually wrap their head around.
And then you can see that the plaintiffs could go, well, let me show you my spreadsheet of how I think 20 billion is pretty easy for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So
or easier or not, this is what we're going to need, because otherwise we'll just bankrupt all of you. We'll take all your shit and then we'll sell for piece for 10 billion. Yeah, so
it's a game of chicken. I mean,
it is a game of chicken, right?
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
It is a game of chicken. Yeah. Yeah. But that was my only point, around that. And we could do a future episode where we walk through the math and be like, here's what the assets are. here's blah, blah, blah. But like I said, I mean, I just looked at NAR's 990 and they have like $1 billion in assets. And most of it is marketable securities. So, fine, declare bankruptcy. You'll get at least $1 billion out of NAR. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like at least $1 billion out of that one company. You're telling me you're going to offer me two? I bankrupt them. I bankrupt Realogy, Home Services, Keller Williams, Remax. I mean, those are the named defendants. I think I get $2 billion. That doesn't seem, that extraordinary to me. Like it's nuts. So I'm like, let's calm down about like settlement will solve all our problems. It's not quite that easy. Is all I'm getting at. Like it's a bigger deal.
I don't know where I come from. It just sounds $2 billion sounds like a shit ton of money.
Okay, it is. I mean, I don't have a fraction of $2 billion. I'm just saying it is, of course, in absolute terms. I'm just saying for the American residential real estate industry, which is $33 trillion asset class, $2 billion is like, come on, it's a joke, compared to the size of it. But anyway, like I said, I wanted to just kind of do an Inman repeat. So let me transition completely. And I promise you, we will do another future episode, especially if our listeners want it. We'll talk about
maybe we can get Russ on, like you said. That he might be a good guy to bring on.
Sure. I think that would be great because or Ed, or one of these other guys. The other topic I heard, and I was looking at the sort of the thing, was like AI. Like everything is AI, and I understand AI is going through the hype cycle. Like, what's your take on all that?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to like AI. I mean, here's to me what, and I'll credit some other, podcasts that I listen to and everything else about AI is, and then we can wrap here. I see Mirrodin's kind of telling us is that it is a transformational technology, but right, this isn't something that, if you're a big company, this is going to only help you be better and bigger, right? I still think that
that's right.
From what I think, I just don't know if a small guy is going to be able to really use this to leverage to be a big company. The big company is the one that's going to benefit the most here, right? Mm-hmm. And they're already using it. They have been using it. So they're going to see, the most benefit of this because of their scale. But, for the smaller companies and vendors, I think it's going to make developers more productive with the co-pilots that are being announced. But as far as, like I always joke about this, and this is kind of my marketing campaign around my book, The Art of the CMA, is that, Zillow can't smell the cat, right? Meaning, there's only some sort of, a computer algorithm can only do so much. A Zestimate can only do so much. Well, I'll say this: ChatGPT can't smell the cat either, right? So I just think yes, it has the ability to make humans more productive, and there's a lot different ways of using it. But most of the stuff that I'm reading here and listening to is just bluster about that they need to kind of say AI now to make themselves,
so
relevant.
The thing I'm curious about is this. Right. So, I mean, I've gotten in some Twitter things about AI and whatever, and I certainly have my opinions around AI. I think it's a lot of hype right now. But as a general matter, my response, so the thread was something like AI is going to make real estate agents, like the AI will put real estate agents out of business. I'm like, no, that is bullshit. It's, to your point, AI can't smell the cat. Right. What I did say, though, was agents using AI will put real estate agents out of business. Right. So the fundamental thing around that is any technology, right, makes you more productive. Otherwise, it's not technology. Like, how much productivity can you have, right? Because the issue is there are only so many homes sold, right? And as we are seeing so clearly in this crazy ass market, it's all macroeconomics, right? It's all interest rates and stuff. So if there are only 4 million homes sold this year, then one agent getting much more productive necessarily means some other agents are going to get less productive, right? Because they're going to win the contract. They're going to win the purchase.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm curious, like, do the vendors, the AI people talking about this, do they acknowledge this fact? Do they go, listen, AI is transformative technology. It's coming. Real estate agents aren't going away because, AI can't smell the cat. However, a lot of you are going away because the agents who are using AI will make you go away. Are they talking about that at all?
Well, it's the same thing with technology
With tech
now.
in general,
Yeah. I mean, you can look back even since I always asked this question of, how many more homes were sold since the internet? And if you average it out, it isn't that many more.
No,
I don't think it's even more. I think the only thing that has been a real change has been the pandemic, right? Because of the work from home situation and everything else.
Yep. Macroeconomics.
So, yeah. So I don't, it's like, but there's still a lot of top agents that don't use technology at all. It's the power of their fucking Rolodex, really.
Yep.
Right. So you can say that, I think, and we've had people on that were talking about how before the pandemic, they may have had 4% market share, but then after they had 8% because they improved their systems and everything else. So you'll have that natural shrinkage for sure. Right. So, but so far, it's just more people are using agents, and that agent population is growing, not shrinking. Sure. I mean, the last stat I saw from NAR is that it actually went up 1% or something, or went up like 6,000 agents, still down about 1% from last year, but it went up a quarter, or a month. I can't, it's just fucking plot twist there a little bit, but I don't know. It's hard God, this market, everything is so hard to read. It's unbelievable.
We need to get a fun economist on, because I just play one on TV. All right. Well, in any event, cool. I mean, I'm glad we got to catch up. It was great to see you in person and finally pay off one of my stake bets. Do we have any other outstanding? Do I need to schedule more? You know what?
We have to text with Larden and see if we've got something, because we may have had something on the end of the what the inventory or what we sold for 2003. And if it keeps going the trend we are, I'm going to probably owe you a dinner. Right. So we'll have to go back to that episode.
Well, we'll have to go and double check, because I want to say I said under 4 million, or is it 4.5 million?
I think you were closer to 4, and I was still
5.
Closer to 5, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Under.
Thanks everybody for listening. Always great to hang out with you, as well as my Nate Ellis Award winning fabulous co-host, Greg Robertson.
Yeah, and thanks for all the great comments on social media, and I'm just extremely humbled by everybody's response to that, and really, and thank you so much to the listeners and everybody out there for their
and great. Next week, make sure to tune in to the first episode of Monochrome and Super Straight. So we're changing the format of our podcast, apparently.
Good Lord.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Listen, content is everything. Two Brothers Creative makes it look easy. Right now, business owners really only have 2 options. The first option is hire a big firm. Now, this big firm's going to come in, make you think that they invented all the algorithms, and start charging you thousands of dollars every month. You don't want to do that. Second option is to do it yourself. Well, that means you got to learn SEO, SEM, copywriting, marketing techniques on the web. You should be really focusing on your own product. But now there's a third option. It's called Content in a Box. Give Two Brothers Creative 30 minutes a week and they'll handle everything. Plus, they'll show you how to bring it in-house later on. They'll rebuild your marketing foundation and give you tools and techniques and a new marketing playbook that'll actually produce real results and help you grow your business. Two Brothers Creative will give you the confidence and know-how to tell the SEOs and SEMs and all those other acronyms to get fucked. You're in control now. Get started today at thecontentbox.com.